or we're all fucking doomed. I mean, we're probably already all fucking doomed. I just bought an Arendelle Aqua. We're all doomed. Hey y'all, cheers, welcome back to the channel. If you are new, I invite you to subscribe. It means the world. If you are returning, thank you again for watching another one of my nonsensical, but yet very important and relevant TV reviews. So, I will preface this like I do, hopefully most of my videos if I can remember to do it. If you are on the M Hamel, we generally, if not always, talk about one of three things: women's issues, Disney, or film and TV. Tonight we're talking about TV, and I'll get into what we're talking about in just a second. I do want to point out the elephant in the room, which is that I did come back from Disneyland, which, if you've been watching my channel, you know. I went full basic bitch, and pause for whiplash. I went full basic bitch, and I didn't intend to, but I went full basic bitch. I was walking out of California Adventure, and there was like an annual pass holder, like rope and like a line, and I was like, ooh, is this like where I get my magnet? Like, what's happening? I'm here for my annual pass holder free perks. Nay, it was apparently the launch of the Arendelle Aqua merch drop. So, you know, your new lounge flies, your sequins, your mouse ears, your sequins, fuck, they even came out with like the new, Disney's doing Croc partnerships now, so there was like the rose gold Crocs, now there's the Arendelle Aqua Crocs. I could give two flying F's about Frozen or Arendelle. I have my qualms about that film and what they took away from me at Epcot in Norway. You can watch a previous video for all that, but I have this shirt already from Disney Springs in Orlando in the millennial pink, as it were. So it's just like holographic Mickey on a sweatshirt, but it's the Arendelle Aqua, so it's actually a really badass color. But I'm a sucker for like the lettering on the sleeve, which you can't really see, but the Walt Disney World has the Walt Disney World font, and this has the Disneyland font, so yeah, I have my two Mickey sweatshirts, and I just happen to do some millennial Disney shit on accident, so I'm not mad about it. I'm actually very happy about it. So again, cheers. It matches my sofa, it matches my angry cat pillow, it matches my Target pillow. We're here for it. So now that we've got that out of the way, I was a little late to this party, but Showtime has a mini-series starring Russell Crowe and Sienna Miller, one of the most underrated and underappreciated actresses, I think. Naomi Watts, Annabelle Wallis, and a slew of other people, Seth MacFarlane, in the television adaptation of the book The Loudest Voice in the Room, which is by Gabriel Sherman. I'll make sure I link it in the description box. But it is the dramatization of Roger Ailes' rise from already being a fairly, I guess, well-known newsman, television newsman, to Rupert Murdoch giving him the go-ahead to create Fox News. And it follows starting in '96 with the inception of Fox News, and it skips to 2011 and how Fox handled that, and then it fast forwards to 2008 and how it handled Obama, and then it fast forwards to 14 through 16, where you see like kind of the rise of Trump and Roger Ailes' hand in all of this, because at the end of the day, Roger Ailes was a politician, in my opinion. He just happened to be a television man. But it is told from Roger Ailes' perspective, brilliantly portrayed by Russell Crowe. I think he deserves an Emmy. Sienna Miller plays his wife, Beth Ailes. She does an extraordinary job, again, in my opinion, per usual. And Naomi Watts plays Gretchen Carlson. So it is told from Roger Ailes' perspective. It is a dramatization, obviously, but it is very much in addition to the rise of Fox as a media conglomerate and its impact on the country. It is very much the story of the assault allegations, his years of sexual harassment and abuse to his staff, male and female, but the sexual assault and harassment that was, laid upon some of the most famous women of television, and, some women who we don't know their names, we don't know their faces, and how Gretchen Carlson ultimately recorded over a year's time behind closed doors her interactions with Roger, whilst being in fear of her, losing her job and her career and all of this, and just kind of sucking it up, taking, her lumps, recording him, and ultimately going to these attorneys and saying, I am not going to stand for this anymore. I have this evidence. I want to sue Fox. Well, her contract was such that she was unable to sue Fox, but she was able to sue Roger, and that's ultimately what she began to do. But as we now know, she ended up taking a very substantial settlement from Roger Ailes. Well, I think the settlement itself came from Fox, and she received an apology, but it never went to trial. She had to sign an NDA. So to this day, and probably till the end of time, we'll never really know what Gretchen Carlson went through, had experienced, etc. But we know from the show and from history that Megyn Kelly has also come forward, along with countless other women, about allegations as they relate to Roger Ailes. Now, Roger Ailes passed away in 2017 after having been fired ultimately by Fox News, by Rupert Murdoch, who gave him the opportunity to start Fox News in the first place, and who turned a blind eye while he was making money. But ultimately, Fox News let him go. Of course, they gave him a huge settlement because you can only punish an old white rich guy so much, right? But yeah, they let him go. His wife, to this day, Beth, maintains his innocence. She lives somewhere, I think, in Palm Beach, Florida. But she seems to be in some great state of denial. But in the show, you see her when they finally come forward after her standing by him after the allegations initially come out. You see her react, and Sienna Miller does it brilliantly, to the Murdochs basically saying, we have proof. And you just see the whole scene and the scene that follows. Sienna Miller needs what she's owed. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic show. It's brilliantly acted, brilliantly written, and I think that if not to watch it just because it's a very important piece of American history, as it not just pertains to pop culture and media, and sexual assault, and how, this is part and parcel of, the Me Too movement and the trajectory that we're on as a culture with feminism and, all of that. All of that aside, Roger Ailes, in my opinion, at the end of the day, was a politician. The way he operated, the way he strategized, the way he thought was just 20 steps ahead of everybody. He's a very brilliant man. And the show really does elucidate, and I imagine the book does even better, which I have not read yet, how much of a hand Roger Ailes had in manipulating media and the country into getting Trump into office, and just how much corporations and media have that element of power and that amount of power. The show's really amazing at articulating it, at showcasing it, without being, grotesque or, cheap or, it's a great show. So I watched The Loudest Voice. I binged it over like 2 days. I can't tell you how much you need to watch it. And if you haven't already seen the preview, the teaser trailer for Bombshell, which is coming out in December, starring Nicole Kidman as Gretchen Carlson, Charlize Theron as Megyn Kelly, and Margot Robbie as kind of a fictional amalgamation of other women that have come forward. That's going to be the theatrical telling of this narrative, right? So we're here for that. But anyways, The Loudest Voice I watched, and then, I'm on Netflix. I've watched everything. I can't find anything to watch, and then Unbelievable pops up. And Unbelievable, I was like, okay, all right, sure, crime detective based on true events, sexual assault, drama, sold. Then the good Lord came down and he said, no, Melissa, no. Not just that. Not just that. We're going to give you Toni Collette, okay? We're going to give you Toni Collette, and we're going to give you Merritt Wever, okay? Now, I think we all can agree Toni Collette is goddess, right? I don't know how much y'all know about Merritt Wever, okay? First time I saw Merritt Wever, she was behind the counter selling pharmaceuticals in Signs, M. Night Shyamalan. Then she won an Emmy for her supporting actress role in Nurse Jackie. She was one of the most endearing, brilliant characters on The Walking Dead, and she was only on there for such a short time, and she made such an impact. She's just an incredible actress. She's one of those actresses where you watch her and it's just like effortless. Like, much like when I see Jennifer Lawrence act, like it's like she's just not even acting. Like, she can just switch into somebody else's skin. Like, that's how Merritt Wever is. I also have a low-key crush on Merritt Wever. Always have, always will. Ready to see that bitch win another Emmy. And I think they both will and should get nominated. I digress. The good Lord has gifted you with Toni Collette and Merritt Wever. And you have Caitlin Dever, who just, I think, made her debut in Booksmart, or at least that's the first thing I saw her in, which she was great in. And she does an amazing, amazing job. She's playing a girl probably a few years younger than she is in real life. Let me give you the premise of Unbelievable. Again, based on a true story. I'm going to pull up some notes I have over here about a... and I'm going to link all of this below, the articles, all of it. But in 2008, the show opens in 2008. This lighting is not working for me. With a 16-year-old girl who we come to find out is the victim of the foster care system. She's already lived trauma after trauma after trauma. She's finally gotten to a point where she's living in a at-risk kind of you live on your own apartment complex, but for at-risk youth, supervised by counselors. She's holding down a job, but you can see like she's very fragile. She's just never been given A, love, B, any type of skills to like cope with the world at all. And Caitlin Dever does an extraordinary job of acting this, and it's so well written too. Anyways, the show opens with her calling the police as she reports that she has been raped. The two male investigators assigned to her case in 2008, this takes place in Washington State, one is very much like, whatever, let's get this over with, let's solve it, let's not solve it, let's go. The main gentleman, you can see, is a little bit torn, he's empathetic, he feels very sorry for her, but ultimately the crime scene is left pristine. There's no DNA, there's no evidence, there's just not enough to build a case. So they assume that, given her history, maybe this is an opportunity for her to get attention, maybe she's made it up. So they incept this idea in her mind while she's being questioned and made to recount her statement over and over and over again. Her details keep changing. There's inconsistencies, and ultimately you can see, and it's so well acted and so well written and so important that they do this in this narrative, that you see that she doesn't have any tools to stand up for herself, to, there's no adult there to hold her hand. Like, she's on her own, and she finally is just like, okay, I made it up. Like, maybe that'll just make it go away. And so they're making her write the statement now, the new statement saying that she made it up, and they leave the room and they come back and they read it out loud, and it's basically, she says it's, oh, I dreamt it. And they're like, wait a second, did it happen? Did it not happen? Did you dream it? Like, you got to make up your mind, and they're yelling at her, and they're pressuring her, and you can just see her collapsing in on herself like a dying fucking star. And then ultimately then she says, oh, it did happen, or I'm pretty sure it happened, but ultimately she ends up denying it and saying, it didn't happen, I made it up. So her whole community, her foster parent, like, everybody turns on her, right? Like, everybody now just sees her as the girl who cried rape. Then we flash forward in episode 2 to 2011, and we meet Merritt Weaver's character, who plays Detective Duval, and she is based on the real-life detective Stacey Galbraith, and we also meet Toni Collette's detective, her character, who is Detective something, Grace Rasmussen, but in real life she's based on an Elena Hendershot. So they're both, all these ladies are real, right? So Merritt Weaver's character, her Detective Duval, and Colette's Detective Rasmussen are both fairly seasoned, Toni Collette being more so, and they're operating in different parts of the state of Colorado. They don't know each other. They're both independently investigating rapes. We as the audience are seeing that the rapist is probably the same because all of the MO is there, everything is the same, right? Ultimately, without any spoilers, they realize that they need to collaborate because they might be dealing with a serial rapist. And the show, over the course of 8 episodes, is going to flash between their very aggressive investigation into building a case that this is in fact a serial rapist, as they continue to uncover new victims beyond the initial 2 that they were investigating, and Marie's story back in 2008, and how no matter what decision she makes, no matter how hard she tries, she can't hold down the job. She has no support system. Everyone hates her. Even the original detectives have charged her with filing a false report, and apparently that never happens. So she hires a lawyer. She ends up getting put on probation. She's dealing with the repercussions of something that, like, is not her fault, right? So I'm gonna have to spoil this to a certain extent because it is a true story. Like, eventually the detectives get their man, right? They realize that it is a serial rapist, and they catch the motherfucker. You flash back to 2008, and you see how, or not 2008, we catch up with Marie in 2011, and we see how that story gets resolved. So I'll leave that alone and save that for the show because it's amazing. But the reason why I was called to, like, film and about this show in particular is because I think, The Loudest Voice is very relevant. Well, I guess this vlog is women's issues and a TV review, obviously, but because women's issues are very important to me, as you may or may not know, The Loudest Voice and the impact that that's had on the psyche of the culture here in the West, specifically in America, and how unbelievable as a show, which again is based on true events, but as a dramatization, ultimately as a narrative as a TV show, goes above and beyond in terms of how it... Oh, hello. TV screen is matching the Arendelle Aqua, though. Okay, so I didn't even try to do this on purpose. Jesus wanted me to be a basic bitch. Okay. Back to sexual assault. The amazing thing about Unbelievable is that, acting aside, I think Toni Collette and Merritt Weaver will both get nominated for Best Actress Emmys, and they both should fucking win. But the acting and the writing aside, the acting aside, the writing of this show has done something that I have not seen in film or television to date, which is it names, articulates, portrays, writes, and acts the shit out of the nuance and the complexity behind how different people, and in this case I'm going to reserve my comments to women. I will circle back to the larger populace in a moment, but how women who are victims of sexual assault and or rape, how they deal with it in wildly different ways. We see Marie, who is this fragile thing that has no tools. She has no one. She does not. It's just heartbreaking to watch, because you just want to like scream at her and be like, oh my God, say this, do this. Like, why? Like, help her. And she's fucking up her own life inadvertently because she doesn't have anyone or any tools or anything to help her navigate this horrible thing that has in fact happened to her. And then you see the various victims that Merritt Wever and Toni Collette's detective characters uncover and interact with. And you see how each and every one of these women, one in their 30s, one in their 60s, one in their 70s, another one maybe in her 20s, how they all processed, digested, remembered, were able to recount, re-articulate, carry, process sexual assault, which was almost identical to all of them, differently. One woman zoned out completely. She couldn't recall any details, anything. Another woman had the presence of mind, and they even discussed this in the show, like how could she possibly have the presence of mind? But she did, for whatever reason, her personality, her disposition, how she was raised, her education, her will, whatever it is, she had the presence of mind to recount every detail, to keep her assaulter talking while he raped her over and over for 4 hours. The time that he walked out the door so she could note that to the police when she called. Another woman that, had bits and pieces and was very confused because in some moments her assaulter was obviously violently raping her, and other moments he was being very tender, and she didn't know what to do with all of that. And just how the fear and all of that, the trauma manifested after the fact within these women, and how they carried it forward, how it impacted them, but specifically how the justice system, the law enforcement system, the social work system probably, but specifically in relation to the show, how law enforcement does not have a clear and a hard and fast, clear protocol, or even a glimmer of a fucking foundation. They don't even have I don't even think we acknowledge this, that women and victims deal with assault differently, and therefore the way that they will be able to recant and recount and remember the details of their victimization to law enforcement are going to vary wildly, and as such, people end up getting, disbelieved or discounted or, deemed as, somebody that cried wolf, right? Which is what happens to Marie, because she gets manipulated into thinking that she needs to say it never happened, because for her it would be easier to just make it all go away if she does. But the two detectives that are interviewing her, again, one is just like checked out and just like, whatever, this bitch is a liar, like, let's close the case. And then the other one, who you can tell is wrestling with it and really empathizes or sympathizes with her, but still, like, there's no evidence, so he's kind of like in a rock and a hard place, and ultimately, though, manipulates her unconsciously into recanting and saying that she lied. But the way the show addresses and showcases the various ways that victims deal with their trauma during and after the fact, and how law enforcement is ill-equipped to handle these variances, these variables, in a consistent fashion, such that victims get due process and get the benefit of the doubt, get believed, right? The other brilliant part about this show, and there's so much, is that you see the juxtaposition between the two male detectives handling Marie's case when she's 16 in 2008, and Merritt Wever and Toni Collette's characters, how they deal with each and every one of the female victims they come into contact with. And it's not like, we're not here to be like, obviously all men are bad and shit and can't do anything right by women. That's not what we're here to say. But it is pulling up valid points insofar as men, maybe specifically in law enforcement and beyond as a larger conversation, are going to have a harder time empathizing and maybe putting themselves in the shoes of a woman who's been raped than a woman, whether she has or has not been raped. And the other great thing about this show is that, they don't give you the easy narrative where, like, these are two hardened ice queen detective bitches who had been done wrong by a man in the past and they're out to get him. No, like, they have no sexual assault to speak of as far as the show brings to light. They're just two women who know how to empathize with people in general and don't want to see this shit happen to other women, period, in a story. So therefore they know how to do their fucking job. And the way that you see them interact with the victims is just like, you're watching it and you're like, if only every victim of sexual assault had Merritt Wever and Toni Collette to, like, take their fucking statements. And by that I mean the real detectives, Galbraith and Hendershot. We'd be living in a much different world. So, shit in one hand, but, there's a scene, I think it's at the end of episode 1 or maybe beginning of episode 2, where Merritt Wever's detective is, for the first time, is interviewing the first victim she encounters, and she takes her aside to take her statement, and just her poise and her calm and her empathy and everything, just the way that she manages it, is just like, why aren't you writing a textbook? Like, why aren't you writing the textbook on how to do this? But there's a scene in that moment where, the victim is recounting her, technical difficulties, her statement, and at one point she starts, kind of explaining, like, why she didn't tell her family and, like, why she hasn't called anybody yet, and Merritt Wever's detective is like, no, you don't need to explain anything to me. Like, that's not, you do you how you need to do you. I'm here to get the facts and catch the motherfucker. She takes her to the hospital. She holds her hand through the whole fucking process. I mean, it's just, Toni Collette is doing the same thing in a different way on the other side of Colorado. It's just, it does such a good job, this show, of really showing the various ways in which, again, let me say this for the 10th time, victims are going to deal with their shit and how that's going to impact how law enforcement receives them, their credibility, how hard they're going to work, how hard they're going to push it, pursue it, whatever. Are they going to disbelieve this one? All of it. And so you have all of that, right? And it just makes you bitter, hopeful that these two women were able to catch the motherfucker and, like, take care of these women in the process. But it also makes you bitter, not just as a woman, but as a person, that, like, law enforcement, the Department of Justice, social work, like, A, don't communicate, but B, like, there's just no foundation for how to give victims the benefit of the doubt, knowing that there's always going to be people that cry wolf, there's always going to be opportunists, but that should not take away or discount from people giving victims the benefit of the doubt until other evidence comes to light or whatever the case may be. And the wildly different ways in which women or victims are able to remember, recall, articulate, and deal with the events around their assault cannot be dismissed as somebody lying or being inconsistent, because then we set a precedent for everything. You know, what is it? I mean, innocent until proven guilty, where, well, also, like, you have to give victims the benefit of the doubt, right? Like, there's going to be some shitty people everywhere. That doesn't mean you start from that lens, right? You don't frame things from that perspective, or we're all fucking doomed. I mean, we're probably already all fucking doomed. I just bought an Arendelle Aqua. We're all doomed. But what I wanted to say is that, and I talked about this in a previous vlog, I think it was the vlog where I talk about, it was in my binge review thing where I talk about E. Jean Carroll and her allegations against Trump. I brought this up, that I'm a feminist, obviously. I don't know how you can, whether you name yourself as one or not, if you're a woman and you think that you deserve what a man has, you're a feminist. So I'm one of them. You know, I have a private group on Facebook that is for women and anybody that identifies as such, where we talk about a lot of this and disseminate and share, flip it and reverse it, share and disseminate information. I reserve a lot of what I talk about on this channel when it comes to film and TV around women, actresses, and their characters. I do talk about things outside of that, you know, in film and TV reviews, but I think my focus is very much so around women, and there's a reason for that. I have, you know, my happy period stuff. You know, you'll see the playlist and in the iCards. We talk a lot about the politics of menstruation on this channel. I think that because I am invested in these things so much, it's all the more important for me to look at opposing viewpoints and to check my biases, right? So for me, one of the things that really shook me this year was Leaving Neverland, which, regardless of your opinions on Michael Jackson and the allegations brought forth against him over the past couple decades, I think everyone should watch Leaving Neverland, because it's an exercise, if in nothing else, in checking your bias. I'm already biased because in my eyes, I still have a hard time believing Michael Jackson is guilty. I'm not going to go into all that, but recognize that that is my bias, okay? And I acknowledge that. Also, the two accusers in the context of the Leaving Neverland documentary are men. At the time of their alleged assaults, they were boys. I have a hard time believing them. Not just because they're men. I have some issues around Wade Robinson that preceded the documentary ever coming out. But I caught myself where had it been women or, you know, kids, I would have been like, oh my God, Michael Jackson, like, my heart, but like Michael Jackson did that, oh my God. Whereas with them, I'm like, but wait, I don't know, So I recognize that wherever I ultimately land with Michael Jackson and these two gentlemen's allegations, I recognize that there's hypocrisy that I'm literally living. I'm really struggling to give them the same benefit of the doubt that I do women. And I know there are women opportunists. I know there are women that cry wolf. But I am still generally, you know, hashtag believe women, you know. So Leaving Neverland is a really good exercise, especially if you're a woman, or a man, but like, for everybody to be like, how are things framed by the media, by this documentary, And how does the framing of it exploit or manipulate my hypocrisy, my bias, or exploit and manipulate my I want to use a very diplomatic word here, my struggles with men, the opposite sex. Historically, personally, you know, how does all the pieces of this puzzle like work to make or break somebody's life, a victim potentially or not, but like either way, like whether you believe the accusers or you don't, the way things are framed and the way that and the lens with which we look out at the world already is going to really inform whose back we have. And it's just, to me, interesting because as much as I quote-unquote believe women and also know that you cannot generalize, there are shitty women and there are shitty men, there are shitty fucking people in the world that exploit victimization for their own gain. How do we use critical thinking and discerning awareness to flesh that out without harming a potential victim, harming somebody that's extremely vulnerable and has been traumatized and violated in the worst way? Like, how do we think critically, look at facts, check our own bias, check our own framework with which we, you know, operate in the world or look at the world through? How do we balance those? I mean, it's such like a big conversation, and I'd love for you guys to comment and like tell me anything. Like, just yeah, I just did a Facebook Live with some women about this. I'm just very eager to see what you guys have to say about this, and especially if you've seen Unbelievable and The Loudest Voice or read The Loudest Voice, or after you do, please comment. I want feedback. This is a huge discussion. And you know what's also interesting is I was just watching the Bill Burr, his newest stand-up on Netflix called Paper Tiger. I'm a huge Bill Burr fan, and one of my newest hobbies is watching black people react to Bill Burr. Those are like apparently like the biggest videos on YouTube right now, but like watching black people react to Bill Burr is like, it will bring joy to your heart. Anyways, I was watching Paper Tiger, and even before like the Me Too movement and like the majority of these allegations that have kind of hit popular culture in America, in the legal system in America over the past like 5-ish years, he had a special where he was even talking about this, you know, where like a couple of allegations had come out against some high profile folks, you know, and he was jokingly defending, you know, some of these men in power, not saying that they weren't guilty, but he was bringing light to the fact that you can't generalize. And in the new special, Paper Tiger, he names something so well, where he talks about the Me Too movement, and he specifically names the Believe Women hashtag, or the hashtag Believe Women, whatever. I don't know what the kids are doing. And he makes the joke, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he's like, believe women. All women? And he's right. Like, of course we shouldn't believe all women. We shouldn't believe all anybody, right? Like, there are opportunists. There are shitty people in every fucking category of person, people. He brought that to light in such like a smart and savvy and witty way, which I personally didn't find offensive. I thought it was really spot on the way he articulated it, but it's true. Like, we have to be very, there are some crazy bitches, you know, there are some psychotic motherfuckers out there. Like, not everybody that files, you know, in court is a victim. They're exploiting victimization for their own gains. We know that, but that can't be our starting point, right? Like, that can't be the way in which we that can't be the foundation on which we approach justice and law and all the rest of it. But I thought his take on it was really on point and needed to be said. And I think, he goes on a little bit of a rant on feminists, and he's on point there, and there's been some really good female comics as of late that have brought it to the fore. Whitney Cummings has a couple really good bits about it. Like, we got some bad seats. I mean, 3 of the founding members of the Women's March, board members, have resigned for unsavory goings on. I mean, we are fallible, we are imperfect, everybody is. But what's interesting is there's such, as with all of history, right? Like, there's a course correction happening, right? With, this, what are we in? The 4th wave of feminism? I can't even fucking keep track anymore. But, we have this moment where, we're speaking truth to power. The light is being shed on all of these dark, shadowy areas of Hollywood and in the real world of men who have been getting away with shit for way too long. What's great about the Loudest Voice is it really, really, really does a good job of showing that there are some fucking women that don't say anything, that are fucking silent, that are equally evil in their perpetration of the victimization of other women. We are not innocent. Nobody is. So there's this course correction happening in culture, in the paradigm in which we're living in right now, where this fucking 4.5, 4.0, whatever feminism wave we're in, where, like, everybody's raising their hand and saying, me too, like, it happened to me, it happened to me, it happened to me. Fantastic. It needs to all be brought to light, right? But with any overcorrection, because we've definitely been way over here for too long with the patriarchy and the white men and just all of that, right? For the better part of history. So now we're swinging in the other direction. But what happens when you swing a pendulum, right? Like, it goes all the way over, right? Now we want to be here, but like, we've been way over here, so now we just fucking let go, and now we are way over here. And the danger with both is that they're extremes. There's fundamentalism in either. We want to get in the middle, which probably will never happen, at least not while I'm alive, and certainly not while the earth is still alive. But the goal is to get to equilibrium, or as close to. But right now, I think we're still in the overcorrection phase, right? So men are scared. Men don't know how to act. Okay, the Crimea River, whatever, it's your turn, all of that narrative, jargon, whatever. But in reality, like, everybody has to figure out how to communicate and understand that the overcorrection is just like a natural phenomenon, and it will pass, and things will slowly start to get a little bit more reasonable as time passes, and we maybe hopefully learn to deal with outrage culture, because outrage culture isn't serving anyone on either side of the political or whatever spectrum. Anyways, I'm getting off on a rant. I just think that there is an overcorrection happening, and we have to understand that that's what it is, and it will subside. And hopefully, when it does, it won't stay stuck over here. It'll come closer to center, and we'll hopefully be here for a minute before we go way the fuck back over here, because that's what history does. But in the interim, you have people sharing stories and telling stories and elucidating? Yeah. No. kind of, but no, that's not the word I want. Like shedding light, illuminating like stories that have been in the shadows for a long time. And with that, you have a gift, because you can talk to your sons, you can talk to your daughters, you can talk to your husband, you can talk to your wife, you can talk to your partner, your lover, your friends, your people that you worship with, whatever, and hopefully have the ability to come to that table with mutual respect and some patience and the ability to agree to disagree, but hopefully to ask some big questions and give yourself the opportunity and the gift of like questioning things that you thought you were solid on. Man, this really got away from me, didn't it? Anyways, watch Unbelievable on Netflix. I don't know, comment below, let me know what y'all think. The Loudest Voice and Unbelievable, truly relevant, truly amazing. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments if you would like more stuff like this, because I mean, this was meant to be a review, but it's also so heavily layered with women's issues and politics and all the rest of it that it's obviously going to become something else and something bigger. But let me know if you like this kind of stuff, and if you do, once I get to 1,000 subscribers, I only need 900 more, I can start doing these live, which I would love to do, and I'd also love to go live at Disney, so help me get to there. Please subscribe if you haven't. Please share if you've already subscribed, if you are a watcher of my channel. It really does mean the world. I'm trying to create something that is not a carbon copy of everything else on YouTube, because I'm really not into that produced content shit. No shade on anybody that does it, but it is not for me. So yeah, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Any feedback is welcome. Comment below, and I will see you on the other side. Love y'all.